Welcome to Decentralized News. This is our weekly news roundup where we cover the stories affecting the cryptocurrency space. I am your host, Pioneer DeVries, joined as always by Ozzy, and we have exciting news to get right into. Nothing we say is financial advice, so please do your own research. I was surprised to wake up this morning to a new Twitter logo. Dogecoin is now, the Doge dog is now the Twitter logo. Price pump, pretty exciting. I love to wake up to that on a Monday morning.
Yeah, the price pumped 30%, which is absolutely nuts, although not unlike Doge. Is it
Yes.
a late April Fool's Day prank? I don't know.
That's what it made me think too, like a couple days late, not April Fool's, but it's no official announcement about using it on the platform or anything like that. But it's like a meme. It says it on itself. It's just, there it is. There's Dogecoin. Boom, pump 30%, or as much as 30%. It's about 20% right now already.
Yeah, it always drastically pulls back. It's a coin that so many people are so underwater on that any pump that you try to sell out at least a little bit.
Any In all the time I've been following Doge and I've been watching the price of this coin for a long time, it is historically has huge pumps and then huge dumps. There is inflationary pressure on this coin like no other.
That and it's literally at the whim of Elon Musk. Elon loves Doge, or at least loves the Doge symbol and logo, and so that always gives Doge a nice pump. People still rumor that they're going to be using Doge as the underlying currency for Twitter. So, who
Yeah.
knows?
Fun fact about Doge, it is one of the few proof of work coins that's still out there.
It's the second biggest one after Bitcoin.
Yeah. So pretty interesting. And it certainly is conceivable to see it used as a transaction layer. Seems possible. Maybe with in the long game, right? Coin backing up more as like the valuable one for not as common transactions, but another coin being used for more everyday transactions, buying the cup of coffee, so to speak, or tipping on Twitter or something like.
It would make sense because they could argue, okay, it's not a security because it's proof of work, so no one really has control of the supply other than the main contract. And yeah, it's got such a large supply and such a low price that it could
It's
totally.
affordable. Yeah. Nice to start off with kind of that fun bit of news because a lot of it is a lot of regulation news, a lot of kind of negative news coming out of the United States. But before we get into that, we can talk a little bit macro, just what's coming up on the US economic calendar this week.
Yeah, there's a few
Headlines.
major events coming up. We've got unemployment, which comes out every 2 weeks, is coming out on Friday. Expectations are really flat right now. No major changes. I don't foresee that changing in the weeks to come. If we look, the next one is CPI. CPI will be a major driver, and that's next Thursday. So April 13th, we need to watch that one. If CPI continues to come in hot, so above expectation, or at an expectation level that is not in line with achieving 2% inflation year over year, then expect decisions coming in May from the Fed to be negatively impacted. And so people will likely react negatively if it's too high. And then I guess the last big piece of news is on Wednesday, April 12th, we've got the meeting minutes from the last meeting. And then we're looking forward to the Fed meeting on the 2nd and 3rd of May. So those are the things to keep an eye on in your economic calendar in the US. We got Easter coming up and other things, but after the closure of Q1, not too many major factors coming up in the next little while.
Yeah. We got about a month till the next Fed meeting. We'll see if expectations change for, it seems like the market right now doesn't believe what the Fed is saying there, and that they'll maintain, maybe raise it one or two more times. So we'll see how those expectations change with the numbers that come out. The
Yeah,
meeting minutes sometimes can affect markets.
that's it. Expectations are now split almost evenly weighted slightly more heavily towards maybe seeing another quarter basis point hike, with 42% expecting it to stay steady and 58% expecting rates to rise by a quarter basis point at the next meeting.
We also have some other pretty interesting macro news and kind of a surprise announcement. Saudi Arabia and OPEC producers have recently announced a surprising cut to oil production of around 1.6 billion barrels per day. When does it say it was
They said
gonna?
it was announced just yesterday or 2 days ago, and it's voluntary reductions in production, and it's scheduled to commence in May very shortly.
Thank
And
you.
it's there to supplement previously established cuts agreed upon in October. So Brent crude oil price is up 5% today, just adding to inflationary pressures and adding concerns for oil and energy prices, as they do play an important part into CPI.
Yeah,
It's
and this
really
inflationary
nice.
factor has been what's putting pressure on the banking system to a certain degree. So it just keeps the fire on that. Well, it seems like.
It does. It really does. This kind of follows other news that we've been seeing with major trade agreements being between countries not including the US, China and Saudi Arabia. China and a whole slew of other countries have signed trade deals where the reserve currency is not the US dollar.
The Chinese currency, correct?
Yes, exactly.
Right. I think to clarify.
So this is really major because it's pulling down US dollar dominance to below 60% now, from a high of just below 80%. And the US dollar is one of the US's largest exports, if not the largest export for the US. And so you've now got just even greater pressure on the US economic system around crypto and just around the economy as a whole. So oil going up in price is just making it even worse.
Yeah, there seems to be some shifts going on in global markets, especially when it comes to the US dollar's dominance and how long that will continue.
Exactly. You'll see it's a greater and greater discussion, and it's part of why people are questioning the attack on crypto, whether they're lashing at US government's lashing out at crypto because of fears around the US dollar and dominance and falling dominance of the US dollar.
Like taking such a heavy hand just because they're trying to salvage this for as long as possible.
Yeah, trying to salvage, just keep the US dollar going, because if as long as the US dollar remains the global reserve currency, the US government has power and has control and can keep printing money to a certain extent. And so that's important to take a note on. But
Yeah, it makes me a little bit concerning what they would be willing to do to maintain that, just on many levels. It's a little concerning as a US citizen.
absolutely.
I'm talking about like for my kids and
Oh,
all
yeah.
this. We're on like World War III and, you know, imagining them being drafted or something like that. Just the implications of what's going on in the world.
Yeah, the implications are could be pretty massive for what this could mean for the US and, I mean, for the globe in the future.
Yeah, coming down harsh on Bitcoin may be minor compared to what's possible.
Exactly.
Speaking of them coming down harsh on Bitcoin and kind of this talk of choke point 2.0 and the consequences, coin liquidity drops to a 10-month low amid this kind of US banking crisis. The liquidity drop is partly attributed to the bank run in the United States and the ongoing regulatory actions against crypto companies. The collapse of cryptocurrency banks like Silicon Valley and Signature Bank removed important US dollar payment rails, leading to a liquidity crisis, particularly on US exchanges. The crunch liquidity has led to increased price volatility, forcing traders to pay more fees and slippage on BTC USD pairs. Stablecoin pairs like BTC USDT Tether have reduced the overall impact for now, but still it's being felt. And the liquidity crisis also led to higher price volatility on US exchanges. For example, the price of BTC on Binance US is more volatile than the average price across 10 other exchanges.
But yeah, if you don't have you don't have people buying because they can't get US dollars on their exchange, then your sellers are having to sell to a greater spread of people. and that can therefore mean that the price is going to drop more on any given sell or any given buy. Anyone who has managed to get a bunch of liquidity on the market, you likely don't have a lot of sellers who want to bring their crypto dollars into US dollars for fear of not being able to bring it back
Right,
or not
right.
having an off ramp for it in the first place.
Exactly.
So that just makes it a lot harder
Yeah, so it's
for
kind of
people to
showing
sell or buy.
there's the pushing of it offshore, but there's also just the actual ways U.S. customers are suffering right now, starting to see some cracks.
Exactly. We're seeing the cracks. It's showing the vulnerabilities of the system and the vulnerabilities of being in a centralized system where one government controls both the means of access and the means of of the monetary system, the financial system, and having such harsh and singular control on access to the market is very challenging for crypto as a whole. Right.
Well, speaking of control, there's another story this week about the Restrict Act and the implications going all the way to affecting just using a VPN could cause violations and strict fines.
Even
This was a
prison
bill,
fences.
right? This is a bill that specifically directs the Secretary of Commerce to identify, deter, quote unquote, identify, deter, disrupt, prevent, prohibit, investigate, and otherwise mitigate national security risk associated with technology linked to countries adversarial to the U.S. So it was originally dubbed the TikTok bill, but the language is so broad that its possible implications are, yeah, a little scary.
Oh, they're terrifying. I talked with this on Jesse Eccles' podcast, The Obsidian Table, on Friday, and this is more than just the TikTok bill. Essentially, this is a way that they could ban you from accessing crypto because it's like the developer of this particular crypto was from quote unquote North Korea or from an adversarial country to the US. And therefore, they could ban you from using it, from accessing it. I don't know, Binance or Sushi Swap or anything. And therefore, you could go to prison because you used a VPN to access those sites for up to 2 decades, 20 years. It's absolute
Right.
ridiculous.
For violation is the way I read it. The bill authorizes fines of $250,000 and 20 years in prison for violation. Now, do your research. I'm a lawyer. I was shocked reading.
It's
Um,
absolutely shocking.
some have argued that this is frighteningly similar to laws in China, home of the world's harshest internet restrictions, just in terms of what it means for your future freedom on the internet. There was a blog from coincenter.org, and I thought it was really interesting because this is a crypto lobbying group that's active in Washington, DC. Just a heads up. I was looking at their website. I'd never seen it. If you can donate, if you donate $50 and are not anonymous, they send you a pocket copy of the Satoshi of the Bitcoin white paper and a Bitcoin shirt. FYI. But anyway, the language of the bill is incredibly broad. So they argue, this is the way they summed it up. The language of the bill is incredibly broad and could be applied to entire classes of technology. For example, the entire Bitcoin network. They could ban you from using it. They argue. The bill also limits to a very narrow scope the ability to challenge designations made by the Secretary of Commerce under this act. So when they do exercise their authority because of the national security nature, way it's laid out, their argument is that a very narrow scope of ways that you can try to, combat it in court.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. And made this comment on the other show, but naming it the Restrict Act, I really hope someone on the inside realizes that's like the worst way to label a bill. And so is potentially really good for us because if we get people talking about the real implications of this bill, then people will actually stand up and not allow this bill to be passed because it shouldn't be passed. If you want to ban TikTok, but they're writing it at least like this because they don't want to get sued by TikTok because they're not singling them out. And so it's absolutely absurd that someone would even allow something like this to be introduced into Congress right now.
And from what I've read about it, the bill is moving forward. We'll see. But yeah, if you have an opinion on the matter, now might be the time to contact your local representatives. Continuing on with kind of regulatory news, Uphold and staking for U.S. customers following SEC guidance. Now, this was not a lawsuit or anything like, but Uphold announced that it can't ignore the recent SEC guidance on staking and is thus preemptively ending its staking services.
Yeah, staking has been a very big target of the SEC over the last 6 months with Gemini and Kraken, Coinbase. So it's not surprising. It's actually, that's maybe one of the clearest things that we've gotten in terms of guidance from the SEC regarding crypto. So we're, is it bad? Does it suck? Yes. But it's not the end of the world.
But I guess one of the things it does show is just this theme of like, we don't know what's going on. We just know you're very active in trying to shut this down. So we just need to shut this down until there's greater clarity. Like we don't even know how to move forward. It's like a throwing hands up. What do you want us to do?
Yeah, exactly. You don't really know what they're going to do and what they want.
It's out of fear of what's going to happen next. Let's just back off,
Yeah.
which is just sad to see in the United States. And there's a lot of this. Bittrex also to shut down U.S. business amid regulatory uncertainty. So they're not getting sued either. Bittrex is shutting down its U.S. operations, citing regulatory uncertainty and unwillingness by lawmakers to embrace the innovation. Bittrex CEO Richie Lai, quote unquote, the sad reality is that while politicians and regulators in jurisdictions around the world with digital asset exchanges on shaping the future of global technology, their U.S. counterparts are seemingly committed to extinguishing the industry and sending it overseas.
Yeah.
And this was after they last October, they paid $24 million. So this idea that, oh, we're going to pay our fines and move forward with greater clarity, that argument or that thesis loses a little steam because it's like they paid the quotes for them or everything's good. We're going to move forward, but no, actually not.
Yeah.
So this is sad news too.
Exactly. They thought they'd be seeing a path forward, but right now there is no clear path forward. Staking is about the only thing. Just don't allow staking, but that's about it. There's no reason why staking in particular is banned. They just don't like it. And this follows even more when we start talking about Biaxi, which just shut down an SEC lawsuit. It was a crypto exchange. They were accused of illegally raising $8 million and offering an unregistered security with its BXY token. And
yeah, this was interesting. I was reading, it seems more about the headline than what it was actually doing. This seemed like a mostly defunct exchange after looking at this. Raise was a few years back. It sounds like legitimate to go after this guy and that he was spending money on gambling and stuff like that. Potentially what is alleged, but this is not a very active exchange. I feel like this is a little bit more about the headline, what the SEC is doing, shutting down stuff.
yeah, but it's also come with, there's been talk about crypto.com and greater concerns about crypto.com and whether they are next on the chopping block. There's been rumors throughout Twitter kind of saying they received a notice. No one knows exactly what kind of notice. One would assume that it is a Wells notice, but no one's flat out come in and said yes or no yet.
Yeah. It's not confirmed, but yeah, I've heard rumblings and rumors, but yeah, we'll see what comes of that. I wouldn't be shocked, but yeah.
Yeah, it's what's going to happen next is what it feels like in terms of the regulation game. And crypto.com is probably the only one that you can think of that hasn't had any kind of regulatory action happen.
Yeah, I've seen some effects with like this quote unquote choke point. I use crypto.com. It's one of the few exchanges available in Hawaii, but my bank no longer does business crypto. It's still authorized by the state, but my bank won't deal with it. So something going on.
I will add something to this. So some high up official at crypto.com, the CEO himself, has
Yes,
actually actively denied that there's any kind of investigation going on against crypto.com by US federal agencies.
thanks for
So
the update.
that's something to consider. We're not in or out of the woods yet, but
Yeah.
something to watch.
Regulators are on a storm, and Elizabeth Warren made some news on Twitter, or that's the first place I saw it, but she launched her Senate reelection campaign with an ad touting the creation of an anti-crypto army as one of like her three main reelection campaign objectives, and that there is some bipartisan support for this in the Senate. And I was listening to the Republican Tom Emmer, who's been a little bit more pro crypto, and he's the minority or the whip in the House. And he's saying there's more appetite in the House for pro crypto legislation than in the Senate. So it goes along with what he was saying.
It doesn't surprise me. The Senate is a little bit older and a little bit more entrenched. They've got a little bit more old money paying their pockets. So that doesn't surprise me whatsoever. I don't think she's going to get as much bite as she thinks from an anti-crypto slogan, because she's also run ads to that effect, but I don't think she'll get as much bite as she thinks. Yes, there are people who've been anti-crypto and will always be anti-crypto, but in the end, I think there's more people that are apathetic or pro-crypto than there are people that are so staunchly anti-crypto that they would choose to support her.
Yeah, it's almost like generational. It's just like this argument from her side is Bitcoin is nothing. It's just, it doesn't exist. You're just betting on a belief. It's going to disappear in a minute. There's no understanding or appreciation of kind of the revolutionary technology it is. But then on the same, at the same time, she brings up a CBDC, and it's like, this doesn't solve anything, but this digital technology does. This centralized version versus the decentralized version really is the big difference there. But all the other attributes of it, they're saying, yes, no, we're going to have a CBDC, but no, this Bitcoin is nothing. But in terms of the boomer generation or those that are already retired, you have the Warren Buffetts and the Elizabeth Warrens of the world saying it's nothing. It's like investing in air, and it'll cement this lack of willingness to adopt from maybe older, more established people in the country, I guess.
Yeah.
Getting my parents to get involved. It's like, as long as there are leaders saying things like this, it's like, no, I don't want to deal with that. I'm already retired.
Yeah.
And that's where a lot of the power in the country resides, is
Where the money is.
where the money is, where the votes are. You know what I mean? So anyway,
Yeah.
move on from that. CZ responded to the CFTC complaint. Did you read that? It's a pretty long response. It goes into detail.
It's
Fun quotes. Oh, go ahead.
He's been back and forth because he's made a few comments, but yeah, this is probably like the longest comment that he's put out so far in their blog. I've not read the quote though I see you put in the show notes.
Part of it is like, personally, because they're attacking him for like certain accounts. They go after him directly. Personally, I have two accounts at Binance, one for Binance Card and one for Crypto Holdings. I eat our own dog food and store my crypto on Binance.com. I also need to convert crypto from time to pay for my personal expenses or for the card. But basically, it's just fighting back, as CZ tends to do.
Yeah, he's a fighter. He's much like Brian Armstrong. Like the two of them are pretty strong fighters in the space.
Yeah, it's like everything isn't perfect, but they still believe in the technology overall. And it's remains to be seen. It's possible he's another Sam Bankman-Fried. He's been doing all this shady stuff. We don't know. It's fairly centralized over at Binance, at least within the realm of possibility, correct?
Yeah, it's within the realm of possibility. Never rule anything out.
But there has to be people fighting for the space. So
Yeah.
nice to see him doing it. Did you see this poster from El
I
Salvador?
looked at it. I was like, that's pretty cool.
They use vintage American style poster. Let's see the benefits of El Salvador. I thought it was pretty fun.
Yeah. Oh, it is very fun. I like it. I like seeing this kind of creativity in the crypto space. So I'm very
It highlights the difference that other countries are taking to transition into some arguments coming out of the United States that are pro Bitcoin. A U.S. space major calls on the Pentagon to mine Bitcoin. In a new MIT master degree thesis, Space Force major Jason Lowry argues that Bitcoin's proof of work consensus mechanism offers a major shift in the way that world powers could wage a war, competing for Bitcoin block rewards as a new battleground. Did you read about this?
Yeah, I saw that. And have you seen the Space Force TV show with Steve Carroll?
A little bit, yeah.
That I like seeing that the Space Force is saying, hey, no, blockchain is important and competing for blockchain mining space is important. It does follow the speech of another senator or congressperson in the US who said we should embrace Bitcoin mining for energy projects and transitioning to renewable energy. And so just to see big thinkers and important people within the government realizing, at least even if there's still the dissenting voice, we're starting to see people that are in power that realize the opportunity with crypto. And it's pretty cool.
This is a pretty serious dissenting voice. Lowry is an active duty U.S. Space Force astronautical engineer, as well as the U.S. National Defense Fellow at MIT, and he is responsible for advising senior military personnel over the implications of Bitcoin. Also, in a recent tweet, I thought this was interesting. He added, "Our First Amendment rights to free speech will not protect you from government regulators who are actively maneuvering to ban Bitcoin, under the argument that it represents a threat to national security. Your best bet is to argue that it would be a national strategic hazard to ban Bitcoin. It would be against the Second Amendment, the right to bear arms. It's an undefeatable argument. You just have to have the courage to use it," is what he's saying.
That is very cool.
Yeah. So inspirations.
Yeah. With that, we've also got the fact that Value Chain, which is a payment consultancy firm, published a white paper that shows that Bitcoin is 50 times more energy efficient than traditional banking, which is pretty cool considering some of the big people that are talking banning Bitcoin is because of environmental reasons and the carbon footprint of Bitcoin. And this is a pretty big, almost and argument against it. It argues that one of the big papers that were published on the source, which was a central bank paper titled "The Carbon Footprint of Bitcoin," was cherry picking debit card use, which is only a very small segment of traditional banking. And so it's not a true comparison. And so that's really cool to see that Bitcoin is being recognized as potentially still an energy improvement compared to our existing banks.
Yeah, it's a 27-page paper that looked at 4 years worth of research and data compilation. So it's nice to have some arguments on counteract some of the FUD that's out there. And there, interestingly, it also noted that when the Bitcoin Lightning layer is compared to instant payment schemes and traditional payment systems, Bitcoin gains exponentially in scalability, proving to be up to 1 million times more energy efficient per transaction. So I thought that was pretty.
Yeah. And then we've got an interesting move forward with NFTs. So Argentinian airline Flybondi is issuing NFT tickets. It's a low-cost airline. It's the first one to offer Ticket 3.0, which is Web3 NFT tickets. It allows you to change the name of the ticket, to give it away or transfer it to another person in a very simple way. and it eliminates some of the usual restrictions that you've got on changing ownership of tickets. So that's pretty cool. With
Yeah,
that,
that's actually your ticket becomes an asset in a way.
yeah, with that, we've also got more news on the Ethereum upgrade, the mainnet Chapella announcement. Pi and Capella upgrades are scheduled for April 12th. So they've confirmed that this is going to be happening on the 12th. And it is going to enable stakers to withdraw their ETH, which is a very critical function for anyone who's staking their ETH. And it's also adding a update that changes the execution in the consensus layer. So it adds some very important changes. Basically combines changes on the execution and consensus layer, as well as the application programming interface, the API. So users of exchanges, digital wallets, and hardware wallets won't actually have to do any unless they are informed to do additional steps by their exchange or wallet provider. Anyone who's operating an ETH node will have to update their node to the newest version of Ethereum client. So this is amazing. And
Big old upgrade coming from Ethereum. It's been DeFi crypto has just been waiting for this moment, a big moment in DeFi and in crypto land.
absolutely. And then I guess one of the last big pieces of news that we've got is Arbitrum is going to be launching new votes with no near-term Arbitrum sales amid a huge community revolt. They had said that on Sunday that they will break up a controversial governance package into a series of separate votes after a huge community pressure from holders of ARB after the publication of the vote.
Yeah, their transition into governance seemed to get off to a shaky start. I guess their first proposal was really just to approve something they had already done. So a centralized move. So it was a little bit like, what's going on? I thought we were going to be voting on these things. So yeah, they backtracked a little bit, but it's nice to see them reacting in their community.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like a chicken on the egg argument. Hard to start a truly decentralized
Yeah. Program.
blockchain. Yeah.
And then one last big piece of news is Injective Protocol has launched Cascade, which is the first ever interchain Solano SVM rollup. It will bring Solano's C-level virtual machines into the broader Cosmos ecosystem. So that's really big. Injective is becoming a very important L1 in the Cosmos universe because it's both integrating Wormhole and Python. So now assets such as Solano can quickly enter Injective through the Wormhole, and they can be relayed by the Pyth Oracle network. So this is really cool for Injective Protocol.
That's good. Good in interoperability news.
Yeah, and interoperability is the name of the game. So very big for both Solana and for Injective and the whole Cosmos ecosystem as well.
Right now. Thanks for listening to Decentralized News. We post to YouTube first, so please consider subscribing to catch the videos as soon as they drop. Our goal is to provide unfiltered content that will help foster genuine discussions to help this entire space grow. Please remember, this is not financial advice, and we are not financial advisors. The show is presented for educational and entertainment purposes only. Please do your own research before making any investment decision. Thanks for your support and stay tuned for the next episode.